Welcome to freedomlovin.com, where we focus on building freedom in an unfree world. Through personal development, location independence, and passive income strategies. Now here's your host, Kevin Koskela.
All right, welcome to Freedom Lovin'. This is Kevin, and today I'm joined with a friend and also a fellow Dynamite Circle member, Richard Patey, from all the way from the UK, and we got to hang out a little bit in Boulder, Colorado, just before I came back to San Diego, and he's out in Vegas now. Hey, Richard, how's it going?
Hey, man. Hey, Kevin. I'm very good, thanks.
Good, man.
It's good to talk to you. It's good to escape Boulder as well. It's
it's
big time flooded there now.
Yeah, it's totally nuts. Huge floods in Boulder. We just both left there, and now the floods are coming. So, yeah, I was there for 3 months, and I didn't see much in the way of weather. I mean, other than the daily thunderstorms, which could be, actually, those could be pretty huge sometimes. But other than that, it was pretty mellow. And most of the daytime, it was just sunny and nice, and not much going on. But so it's weird to see those pictures and videos and stuff on the web.
It's unbelievable. And I got out just at the right time. I doubt I could even get to the airport anytime soon now. So, yeah, it's nice to be in Vegas. It's nice to have some settled weather and be able to have a change of scenery and get some work done. Boulder sounds not a good place to be right now.
Yeah. So you're the coffee shop entrepreneur, and I didn't give out your website. Well, it's richardpatey.com. You can check out his...
I started with going with the branding, saying I am, the coffee shop entrepreneur or something like that. But it just didn't really seem or kind of fit too well. So I've got a book, the first book that I've written, and self-publishing it on Amazon and uploading that at the moment. And so I added a very kind of subtle S to the end. So the book is Coffee Shop Entrepreneurs, because I don't really want to kind of pigeonhole myself in terms of I must, at this stage of my life, work from coffee shops. This is who I am. Yeah. It's kind of like over the last few years, I've been working out of coffee shops, keeping my overheads down. It's worked out really well. I met some great people. I've been able to interview other people that do the same for the book. And so I kind of like the idea that Coffee Shop Entrepreneurs is kind of a discrete project, and then there'll be other projects and online products, and just operating under my name. So I think that's kind of the best way as a solopreneur, rather than like pick a domain or a branding that kind of fixes you. I'm just going to operate as me, and that will change because, my life is changing weekly, and I'm kind of changing monthly. What I'm up to, how I see things, how I'm interacting. So people can find out what I'm up to on the site. It's a blog as well, and
Yeah, really cool stuff, and I'm also kind of a coffee shop entrepreneur for as much as I can. I've even tried the co-working spots. It's really weird because you think that it's a great idea. Co-working spots are basically places where like a lot of solo entrepreneurs will go, and you can sit down at a desk and plug in your laptop and work from there. And then you get to be around a lot of other entrepreneurs that are doing kind of the same thing or something similar. And it's a great idea on paper, but when I've tried it, my problem is I get bored really quickly.
Yeah, so. I get within the first 10 minutes. I mean, like they're co-working spaces, and I kind of get that people are there to do business. Yeah. But it's silent. I mean, it's just like there's not a lot of interaction going on. I've tried a lot back in the UK, and I went around all the different spaces in Boulder, and there's some great places. There's one called Fuse down by the river, by the creek, which is probably flooded right now. Yeah. And it's a great spot, but I've got no incentive to pay versus work out of a coffee shop. So like we both went to Ozo Coffee Shop just north of Pearl Street, and that's the perfect place for me. And there's loads of techie people there on the laptops. There's loads of startups speak around you. It's buzzing. I can't ever see myself doing the co-working space, let alone kind of getting any kind of fixed office space. So maybe I am true to that branding, but I'm going to try and stay away from branding and just be myself. But for sure, co-working spaces, they're not a good fit for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I went to a couple of the ones in Boulder too, and the hub was actually really, really nice. And it's not that expensive, but it's just you get the variety. When you go to coffee shops, you get a variety of people. You can always go to another one. Like I sometimes will go to one in the morning and then one in the afternoon. Just
for sure. Yeah, I never really stick around for more than an hour and a half at a time. I get restless. Like I don't like sitting down in terms of posture for any longer than that. And so I go to 2 or 3, and the variety is amazing. So I can focus really well and batch tasks and be really productive. And so actually taking a laptop and actually having like battery life is the amount of time that you kind of have. It works for me. I get stuff done.
So yeah, maybe we can just back up a little bit. And how did you get started? Like, what kind of drove you into this lifestyle of just working for yourself and traveling the world and stuff like that?
Me and jobs have never been a very good fit. It was more, I was pushed into this rather than seeking to become entrepreneurial. It was just a case of, like, employment is just not a happy environment for me. So many times just going crazy at my desk, and like a year and a half in any job, like I just have to get out. And now I think it would just be about 3 days.
Yeah.
Is all I could really cope with.
Right.
So, I mean, I was kind of pushed into it. Like, I ended up, so kind of my story is I did a business degree. It kind of turned me anti-business. I didn't like the people on my course. At the time, I was quite a rebel. I was quite an anti-capitalist, actually. It kind of turned me anti-capitalist doing a business degree. And so I didn't really want to work for profit. I saw that it's not something I wanted to do. And I ended up working for charities and then moving into like the social enterprise space for the next kind of decade, most of my 20s. And then realized that actually there's no money to be made there. There's no actual impact because there's no money to be made there. And so I was kind of, ended up having to go independent and find a way of making my own money. And I started off just doing anything. So working for charities, I was doing bid writing and bringing in grants and contracts for the people I was working for. So I started doing that independently. I did some business advice funded through the UK government when there was funding to be had. And then I kind of branched off. To get going, I knew I needed to have a website, or I thought I needed to have a website. So I taught myself basic WordPress and basic design, and then needed a logo. So I taught myself how to use Illustrator and the Adobe products, and then started offering that to clients, and found out there was no money in design. And then so I kind of moved on into different areas, moved into content, blogging, and started to, as soon as I understood how search engines actually worked, that was pretty big for me, and I could see how I could help other people. So ended up making, up to this point, in terms of this year, how I've made most of my money, it's been through search engine optimization for other people.
Right.
And now I got to the point where been able to sell the clients to another agency, which has freed up my time and my location, and I can use that time and freedom to work on my own products, such as the book, and move into, I want to exclusively just operate in online products and promoting my own things, and maybe a little bit of affiliate stuff. But I like the idea of actually creating things that I'm into, products and books, and we've talked about our desire to set up software businesses and businesses that can scale, and so that's the kind of space that I'm now operating in. But it's 3.5 years of just trying to figure out how to make money, what works, how I can get the confidence to sell services to clients. So it's taken a long journey to get to this point, and that's been the content for the book that I'm hopefully going to get out next week. So
no, that's awesome. It's the same. Like, I have a similar story. It was not at all like an overnight thing or even a few months. Like, it seems like a lot of people get online and then they all of a sudden they have this business, and months later they're financially free and everything's just flowing. They're traveling the world, and that's like maybe 1 out of a million people that try to do something online that even happens. And because we hear the stories about like Pat Flynn, like he's kind of one of the leaders in thought in the whole passive income world. And, his story is that he did make it really, really fast. And now he's kind of seeing that it took him a while, but really his stuff took a few months to get really rolling. And that's just an expectation. If people have that expectation that it's just going to be, like a few months and then I'm off to the races, that's going to be pretty disappointing. So I think it's better to hear some of these true stories about how it really works and what you have to go through to get to a point where you're even kind of figuring things out and, making enough to get by, let alone being like independently wealthy and being able to travel first class everywhere you go and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work. It wasn't natural for me. Going to business was not a natural process for me. I had to kind of switch on different parts of my brain that were never used before.
Yeah.
Some people, like I've got a good friend back in Norwich in the UK, my home city, who does he's got a couple of clothing businesses. He makes money through e-commerce, through the websites that he has. And he's just always been a natural. He's just like making money is just like breathing to him.
Yeah.
But it never was to me. No, it's always been a struggle to figure out how to create products that add value and how to sell it and how to price it. And,
right.
And how to, then you got to control yourself. You got to be so disciplined not to screw things up. So yeah, it's an incredible journey. Like in terms of like, I don't know, like self-development, I think like be successful in business is one of the best things that you can do to become like a well-rounded person. I think it tests you all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Pretty much every day.
You got to be so resilient. You got to be so in control. I mean,
yeah.
it's just you. I mean, like I'm in Las Vegas now. Like I've already spent like a ridiculous amount of money in the first couple of weeks in the States. Like Colorado has been a lot more expensive than I thought.
Yeah.
And I've got to be in control of cash now. Like otherwise, like that's the thing. I mean, it's like there's an amount of money. Like listening to Dan Andrews on the Tropical MBA podcast, like his concept of the cash runway. Like it's just so true. Like that's kind of all I have now. Like all I've got with me is a backpack,
right,
with a few items. Like the biggest asset, like actual possession I have is my MacBook that I'm talking to you with right now. I mean, that and my cash is all I've got. If I didn't have the entrepreneurial skill set, and so like developing that, there's just so much value to have that because you can see opportunities everywhere. But yeah, cash is the currency. And if you screw that up, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
because you're back to zero again. Like it's so hard to build from zero. I've done it so many times. And as soon as you get any kind of momentum and confidence, you just got to keep on that track, and you've got to keep in control. It's so much easier, like when you've got income streams set up and happening to build from those. Which is why it's actually quite a risk in terms of like transitioning away from client work before I headed to the States. But there's just no future in me like setting up. I don't want to operate in the client business space. That's not going to get me to where I want to be in terms of lifestyle. I've got a lot of like friends building like SEO agencies back in my hometown. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of respect for that. That's not who I am, and that won't get me to where I'm at right now, like in Vegas and I don't know, having the kind of lifestyle that I want to live now rather than kind of deferring it. They're going for the bigger win. They're going to have a lot more cash than I will have sooner. But I'm setting up like little investments kind of in lots of different places that will hopefully become assets that will sustain me forward. So I'm diversifying as much as I can now. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I have the same experience. So I went to this SEO conference last week for 2 days, the Distilled conference here in San Diego, and same kind of thing. I mean, most people there were working for agencies, and a couple of people owned agencies, which is another step up. But there was a lot of sharp people there, really, really smart people doing a lot of things and probably making a lot of money. But it had no appeal to me at all. I mean, it was just this is not what I want to do in any way, to go into some company and take on clients and work on campaigns. And it just sounds absolutely miserable. But I'm sure that if I were to do that, I would be making a ton of money. But the lifestyle is completely different. Everybody there, I don't think I met any location independent entrepreneurs. I think they were all just, living in one place. And which, for them, that's fine. Yeah, it's a completely different lifestyle. And that's kind of what I wanted to chat about today. But I wanted you to tell the story about how you almost didn't make it into the U.S., because that is just amazing. I still am blown away by that.
Yeah, so I flew from London to Boston. It should only be about an 8-hour flight. Then because of the weather, there's some fog that rolled in. Actually we had the plane had to land in Connecticut for a few hours, and so then ended up back in Boston. So I was pretty tired. I was already awake for about a whole day, because I had an early start in the UK. All I had was my backpack, because I like to travel light. It makes sense to me to operate that way. And so I filled in the form, which said, is your primary purpose of being in the States to be on business or personal? And I thought it'd just be a lot easier and a lot quicker if I ticked that I'm here for, like a vacation for a personal thing. And went to the security guy, and I already kind of got a feeling that it wasn't going to go so smoothly by the way he was already looking at me. And he started asking me what my intention was and how long I was going to be here. And I said, well, I'm probably going to be here 2 to 3 months. And he said, you just got that backpack. Is that all you've got? And I said, yeah. And also, like he was saying, do you have a return flight? And I did, but I didn't have anything printed because it was all online. And so that wasn't good as well. Yeah. So a combination of things, he radioed to the guy to take me to the room where you go. And so, I was in a room full of interesting characters and waited my turn to be asked more questions and showed them I had a return flight. But then they started asking, okay, well do you have, you've got a place back home, have you? And I said, no, I've just left the lease because I'm now traveling around the States. And they were saying, okay, well, do you have a car? And I said, no, I just sold my car. And they were just very concerned because, well, that's the kind of behavior that you would see in someone who was just trying to get into the States and never leave. So then I get taken into a booth. I get put under oath. I get interrogated for 2 hours about exactly who I am, exactly what my intentions are in the States, what I was doing with business. We're just going into a ridiculous amount of detail. I got asked how I make my money. I ended up having to explain how SEO works to this guy.
Probably maybe made it out of high school at the most, right?
Because there's so many different parts to what I do. I'd forgotten to say that part of the reason I'm in the States is to set up a US operation for a little print business that I have that sells panorama prints that people take panorama photos on their iPhone. And I'd forgotten to say that because that's actually just like a small part of what I do.
Right.
But at that point, so he didn't believe what I was saying, and he asked to grab my phone for me to unlock it. I then sat down next door again for 20 minutes while he was going through my phone. He brought me back in and he started asking me what I meant by messages that I sent to my friends, saying, like, I'd sent a recent text message to a friend who'd asked how long I was going to be away from the UK, and I said likely 4 months because I was intending to go over to Canada. And so he was concerned that he thought I was going to stay over my 90 days that I get.
Wow.
And he was going through emails. He found an email that I sent to a print customer saying I was going to be able to post a print from the States. And so he was concerned that I hadn't told them about some kind of business intention that I had.
Right.
I mean, it was just a really hard time, and I was incredibly tired and not thinking straight. And the end result was he said, you were as close as you could get to not being let in. We were about to send you back. I mean, being location independent and traveling light and not having a base in your home country, it does not go well with US customs.
No.
And so that was my welcome to the States this time.
Yeah, welcome to America.
But it made a good blog post.
Well, stories like that is why my website is, the tagline is building freedom in an unfree world, because when you travel like that and you go to places like the US when you're not from here, or even if you're from here, you find out that you're not really free because you're stopped, and it's like there's nothing you can do. Like the guy grabbed your phone, and you couldn't just say, "Hey, that's my phone." It's like,
well, I would have been deported there and then. Like one false move, that's how it is.
Yeah,
I didn't know my rights. I just knew I didn't want to be turned away.
Exactly.
I mean, and he was taking notes on everything I said on the system. They know who I was best man to at a wedding. Wow. Who is this guy? Tell us who this guy is on your phone. It's just ridiculous. So I don't know what's going to happen next time I come back to the States.
You're probably on some list, and they'll probably put you aside again, and then you'll have to go through some sort of, bullshit.
Exactly. Welcome to America again, yeah.
Maybe just stay away from the U.S. Just go to Canada, or even better, just go to Thailand, where you walk up, you show them your passport, and you give them, I think it's like $25, and they give you a stamp for 30 days. And that's it. There's not even any questions. It's just really simple and straightforward.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm on a British passport. I got a visa. I got a return flight. Yeah, I'm interrogated for 2 hours because because it's not a conventional line that they're hearing. Right. So, this lifestyle doesn't create easy situations sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, you made it, and that's good. So, So we met up in Colorado, and Boulder and Denver are sort of these startup hubs where there's a lot of people that are starting businesses there, and there's a kind of a good community, and there's a lot of things going on, and there's not so much. Would you say there's not a lot of like traditional kind of solo internet marketer types? There's more these people that want to build these businesses and then get them sold off and make millions of dollars. Yeah, that's the vast majority of the people that I was interacting with. It was good to connect with a bunch of internet, online marketers. There were a few. I met up with a guy called Andy Drish, who from the foundation, who is a very impressive individual with what he's building with a guy called Dane Maxwell, who I'd love to meet with at some point in the future. So it's good to meet him, people with real ambition to build products and software businesses. And I bumped into a few other random people who are operating in that space. But yeah, the vast majority are chasing the startup dream. And we've talked about this a lot. I mean, the thought of getting investment from an outside source just scares the hell out of me. Yeah. I just wouldn't want it. I mean, so there's very few, location independent people. And why is that? I have kind of the same feeling, and I know we both read James Altucher, who is kind of along the same lines of just do yourself and, forget about trying to get all this money. And why do you feel that would be difficult? Yeah, as far as getting money from investors or getting money from people to start a company, what is it that is scary to you about that? I don't want the responsibility. I don't want the accountability as well. I mean, I would much rather just be in control of my income and support myself in ways that I want to. I mean, it's just the startup scene is great. It's why I went to Boulder. I heard Brad Feld speak at an event that I was at. And I'm really into it. I love the whole startup culture, but it's not for me. I wouldn't want to be giving years of my life to something where there's no guarantee that, where the vast majority
obviously fail. That's the reality. And it's just like, I've played a fair bit of poker over the years. And it's just, I mean, that's just like poker is controlled in terms of the risk level. And that's off the charts. Like starting a startup is like the biggest gamble that you could ever take. Like, you know, the vast majority are going to lose. You know, that you're going to have to work 120-hour weeks. And I did that like in the first 3 years of my business. I like figuring out what makes money. Like I've worked those kind of weeks and it sucks. And it's the opposite to the lifestyle that I want to have now. I want to minimize, you know, classic Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week style, the amount of time that I spend on actual work, and maximize the time that I want to do on my own projects. And so, yeah, like I think they're different poles, different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what we were just chatting about the other day is this whole idea that going to try to do a startup, it could end up being you're sort of becoming a slave to that sort of system where it's...
Yeah, that's right. You
go down the path of one startup. You have this brilliant idea, and you get funding, and you get all this stuff, and then you're working 120-hour weeks, and you think you're going to make it, and then you don't, like most people. And then you start over with another one, and then you do go through the same process. In the meantime, your life is going by. Yeah. You're not able to travel. You're not able to have a whole lot of freedom. And then at some point you may make it big, but that's sort of like that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's going to be tough to get there. And you can, in the meantime, you can build a business on your own, which may not pay anywhere near as much as, you know, the millions you're going to make on that amazing startup idea, but you're living in the process and you're learning and you're getting there. So that seems to be the difference.
Yeah. I'm not about the big win. I've got no desire to have, you know, 7 figures in my bank account. I mean, for one, I don't need it. And just the trade-off in terms of trying to chase that it's too much for me. So no, like just small pots of money coming in from different sources. That's the approach that feels right for me. And just making money from day one. I mean, like, I don't understand why you go into a business without testing it and without or spending any time on any kind of business without getting your customer first. So it's a complete opposite approach. Like it's building a product that you think would be awesome for the world. And I've got a lot of respect for that, but there's no, and it's also, you know, the business model is also one of getting millions of users as well before it can start making any kind of money. I would much rather just deal with 10 clients or 100 customers, that kind of stuff, rather than anything bigger. Although, you know, it would be good to get into building a software business. But again, I would just want to validate it from day one. Get customers to prepay for it before you even start building it. Yeah, it's not the approach for me. But, you know, mid-30s now, and if I was, early 20s, I'm sure I'd be thinking differently.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it kind of reminds me of this when one of my stories of my corporate days was I joined this company and it was out in the Bay Area, and it was sort of a startup, but they had been around for a couple of years, and they were supposedly going places, a software company, and so I joined because they were offering a lot of stock options and had a great plan and everything, so got lured in by that, and then I was there for about 6 months, and then someone told me that they don't actually have any customers, and there was like 400 people in the company, you know, doing all sorts of different things. I think I was doing account management and business development, all these jobs that were like, you know, kind of like you hire that way down the road after you've been profitable for a couple of years, but they were hiring people like crazy. And so then, the writing was on the wall. And of course, they laid off half of the workforce and then later just went out of business. So those things are probably more common than the big wins. So
yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah, the people that are attracted to that space, like, you know, they're fun to be around, but they're not my kind of people or tribe that I want to connect with and want to do business with and socialize with. It's a different type of person, I think.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, being part of this dynamite circle that Dan and Ian set up is great, because that's the exact type of that's where I'm at this stage of my life. And so it's great to be able to connect with people anywhere, pretty much wherever you are in the world. You're going to find like-minded people that actually have businesses that make money, which is somewhat rare in the kind of overall entrepreneur space, with everyone calling themselves entrepreneurs. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are kind of bluffing it, and I don't know. The further I get into business and the older that I get, the easier it gets to spot people that are not kind of, I don't know, as genuine or as successful as they're making out. I've only really got time for people now that I can learn from, that are making decent money, because that's the direction I want to go in. I've got no time for anything that's ego-driven or anything where people, like there's a great video that I just saw Dan Andrews post on Facebook from a couple of years ago, where it's either you make money or you blog. I mean, it's just too many people just thinking that like your blog is not a business. It's a tool that you use to build community, to promote your products. There's too many people that, I mean, blogging is the best place to start. And like in the book, like there's just a small chapter on how I'd recommend people get going. And for sure, like getting your own name domain website and a blog on there is I still think is the best way to start. But you got to create products. You got to start making money as soon as you can. A blog is not a business, and too many people think they're successful. I don't know. That's cool. I need to focus on the dollars.
Yeah, no, that's a great point to bring up. Is the whole blogging thing. I mean, I've met some bloggers through the DC that are actually making a living blogging, but they've told me that it takes a long time, and there's a lot of that you spend months and months and even over years. Yeah. Where your audience is like your friends and maybe your parents or your family, and that's about it.
Your LinkedIn connections for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it takes a really long time, and then even when you have got to that point where you're making something from it, it's not much. It's enough to you can make enough to get by, and then unless you're Pat Flynn, and then you make 120,000 a month or whatever.
Which is nuts. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like and those people are obviously outliers, but they're the people that people look up to, and I've learned tons from Pat Flynn and the big players that are successful. But as soon as you put AdSense on your sites and you see how little money you make, and the same with affiliates, like actually having your own products is a pretty solid way to go. And creating your own sites and your own niche areas, that makes a lot more sense to me, and it's far more interesting to me too. I don't want to be reselling other people's stuff. If I can create my own value in the world, it's just far more interesting that way.
Yeah. So as far as your book goes, what else is in there? What else are you talking about in your book?
Yeah, I didn't want to write another book about how to set up an online business. You just need to Google any question that you have. So for me, it was just about the mindset and the way I had to kind of change my perspective more than any kind of how-to or anything like that. I mean, for example, I've had to learn to really trust my gut and not overanalyze or overthink things. And so my gut has led me to Vegas and has kind of got me out of Boulder before the flood. So that kind of worked out well. It's kind of the mindset thing. So, I mean, a big thing for me is when you start out in business and you're not making any money and you're trying to make your first $1,000, you're in a desperate position. And so it's kind of how you can flip your perspective from scarcity to abundance, and kind of just being in control of your thoughts. Like, so for me, like it's kind of like where I've got to from the last 6 months in terms of like just kind of going quite deep on psychology and just being aware of thoughts and just focusing on what I want to achieve. So it's kind of mindset and perspective changes, as well as interviews with other people to keep it a bit lighter. But it's more the psychology of how you can succeed, how you can sell yourself, how you can pitch. It's kind of how you can get the confidence to be successful, which for me is the hardest thing, like getting confidence. There's no real formula. Like you have to get your internals straight. You have to, align positive thoughts with how you're coming across, what you're feeling, especially when you're trying to pitch your first clients. Like, if you come across awkward or unsure of yourself, you're not going to close. So, the book covers those aspects more than how to actually build a niche site or something like that, because Google has all the answers, or Pat Flynn, obviously. So, it's principles more than any kind of, you must do this. There's no set way of doing it. But so it's kind of the mindset that I need to be successful, that I need to keep myself in order to keep going forward and keep the confidence and momentum that's so hard to build.
Yeah, just the idea you mentioned the idea of coming from a place of scarcity versus abundance, and that's something that I've struggled with, because there's a fine line. Like, you want to save money, you don't want to be spending all this money while you're building something, but at the same time, you don't want to look at things like, I have to pinch pennies, and every last little penny is going to be so important to me. Because I've gone from that perspective where I'm like I had a situation where I got divorced and I had to pay for these houses, these rental houses that were just losing all kinds of money. Like every month it was a big expense. And before we were splitting some of that, and then it came all to me. And so then I was running my business and dealing with real estate. And then suddenly my perspective became like, I got to save everything I can possibly save, and I can't afford to spend any money. And so I was kind of like staying in all the time. And that gets to be like sort of locked in, and then it really screws you up business wise. So it's sort of a double-edged sword.
The first few years, it's kind of interesting how you look at money when you first get into business. So I was pretty scared to spend any money business-wise when I started up. I mean, I didn't have any, so that's probably why. So I was doing everything I could. I was learning everything. I had no ability to outsource in terms of paying for things. So just for the first year or so, like I was just keeping my business costs low as possible. But then you start to kind of open up a bit, and it got to the point where, I keep my personal finances in pretty good check. But if there's a business expense that's required, like I just make it like it's, you get to the point where you separate out your personal bankroll from your business bankroll. And so the value of the dollar is completely different. And it's kind of interesting when that happens. But then I don't know, I haven't really thought about this until now. But then when you are kind of living a location independent way of life, it feels like it's all become one again. And so my business cash is kind of feels like my personal cash now. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I kind of, where I'm at right now is like I've got a lump of cash. That's my one cash runway, and I've got to protect it. Yeah, you have to be able to spend and put yourself into positions that can help you. I'm in Vegas now, and it's obviously not a cheap town, but I've already started making some interesting connections, meeting some good people who actually have their own businesses and are making money, and just being here feels like the right place for me to be. And so, yeah, like I'm having to spend money, but my feeling is that there's going to be a good return for me being here. And especially with everything that's going on downtown with Tony Shea from Zappos, who's now moved into the town hall and the downtown project area and the coffee shops that are springing up there. It feels much more opportunity here for me than there was in Boulder. Especially, it feels like it's raw here. It's up and coming. Boulder is pretty polished, and
yeah.
And so you've got to spend money to put you in the places where you can go forward and you can meet the right people. Yeah, you've got to be sociable. Business is all about the connections that you make. And yeah, if I was just in one place by myself and never went out, like I wouldn't be successful. I'm not saying that I am now, but I have no chance of going alone. I mean, I guess, people are grinding away on niche sites and, directing traffic to sites, and that's great. But that's not the lifestyle that I want either. I want to build things with other people going forward. And so I need to be in places like this and Boulder, and they're not cheap. Again, all I've got is my gut feeling that this is the right thing to do. This is the right way of spending my time and my money now, because like the people that I'm going to be meeting are going to be helpful. And so obviously, meeting up with you in Boulder was great, and you've connected me to some people there too. And we're looking at bringing in money through maybe getting some new SEO clients, but also working on some interesting stuff. So if I hadn't have bought the flight, if I hadn't have been living where I was in Boulder, none of that would have happened. So
that's right.
You've got to be able to spend the money where you need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, you also play poker. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you about. So how did you start with that? And are you at the point now where it's pretty much in your control? Like, you're not going to go out and lose money?
Yeah, well, I play to make money wherever I am, obviously, but like it's where I'm living now in the Vidara, like the area poker room is just like a 5-minute walk away, and it's a nice thing to do in the evening. So I think this is going to be a really good setup for me here. So I can do my business during the day, I can go downtown, I can connect with people, and then the evenings I can just socialize, talk to people around me at the tables, get free drinks, and try and pay rent. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But yeah, I mean, like, I got into poker before I got into business. I've wanted to be able to make money from my laptop anywhere in the world for a long time, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. And I thought that the best way at the time was to do something that I was really passionate about, which was I got into poker when I did a ski season in Canada. We were playing every evening in the condo, never heard of the game before. I found I had some kind of natural ability or liking for it, made a little bit of money, started buying some books, which is the classic thing that you do, or that you did anyway, before the forums. And then, spent the next kind of couple of years going really deep on the game, learning the math behind it, tracking all the stats, going in forums, discussing hands. I at least did have a very obsessive personality. My personality up to now, which I'm trying to moderate, has been all or nothing. And I was definitely all in on poker for a couple of years. Like, I was learning as much as I can. And like it was fascinating. Like, it's a game of probability and math, and you can work out whether a play was correct or not. And there's no one correct line in order to maximize your return, your expected value. And this is the thing. This is kind of interesting. This is actually in the book, or at least it's interesting to me. So like for a couple of years, I was just in my head, like going deep, like all my thoughts were poker. Like I was dreaming about hands. It was not a good state. It was a very unbalanced state for me to be in. But what that enabled me to do was I got very good at visualizing in my head. So I would, like, wherever I was, like in the gym doing a workout, I would be going over hands, and like very aware that my eyes were like going up top left, and I was visualizing, and I could see very clearly and go through every stage in my head, and then think about what I would do differently, and I would do it differently next time. And that actual visualization has helped me a lot in business and in life. I think, like in the book, like I mentioned about NLP, and I think that's kind of what I've been able to do on myself through visualizing situations that I've been in where I haven't got the outcome that I wanted in business or life or relationships, and kind of thinking like, okay, well, how could I have done that better? So yeah, then like the last 6 months, I've started trying to be in the present and get out of my head completely, and which is kind of hard, but if you can do that, and I started to just do very basic beginner's meditation, which I'd never done in my life before, but I think that was an integral part of it. When you can be in the present and get out of your head, you start seeing that there are opportunities everywhere, all around you,
right?
Whether that's business or life or relationships. It's a very powerful state to be in where you see reality for the first time, like when the present is all that exists. And you're not thinking about something in the past, or you're not hung up on something that you did, or not thinking about how much money you're going to make in the future. It's a powerful spot to be in. And that's definitely helped me get to where I am in terms of business and getting clients and becoming location independent. So yeah, I played online poker for a couple of years and it wasn't good for me. So I don't play online poker, and I never want to touch that side of it again. It's the most active income you could ever have, which is just dumb as hell. I mean, like, you're trading your time for money, and there's no guarantee that you'll make money because of the variance. And B, it's the most unsociable activity you could do as well. You're in your room by yourself. I wasn't able to have like the right mindset. I couldn't see that was not a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
But the goal was always the same thing. The goal was to be able to make money anywhere in the world, and poker was just a tool. It was a way to achieve that. But fortunately for me, it didn't work out. I didn't run well. I didn't lose any money, but I didn't make much money. And that forced me to actually learn how to create value and actually how to do business. So it's good. But yeah, the poker skills that I've got now, it's nice to be able to play with a bunch of tourists and socialize and take their money and pay rent. So I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah.
So
no, that's awesome. And it's kind of something you can fall back on too, it sounds like.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that would be a very sad and pathetic and dangerous state to be in if I've got no income streams other than my ability to play poker. I'm certainly not going to be happy with that. I'm pretty sure friends and family would be very concerned.
Yeah.
So as long as I keep it, a social, I think like I'm very good at moderating myself now. Like, I've got myself in a good place in terms of skill set and mindset. Like, I'm very positive all around now. And as long as it's just something that I do sociably in the evenings, then that's cool. And I mean, I met a girl last night who was on my left at the poker table. She's from Seattle and flies into Vegas regularly. I mean, she's a very interesting person, a great business person. She was telling me about a basketball academy that she had been open and running for the last year, and that's potentially going to be a 7-figure business for her. She's also a web designer. She's got a software business. I mean, this is just someone next to me at a poker table.
Yeah.
Everyone's pretty happy to be there. I'll never be lonely or bored in Vegas. And the ability to make a little bit of money or at least pay rent is kind of cool. If I can live rent-free in the Vidara Suites, I'll be happy. Yeah, if I can shut down all spending, which I think I've got a good chance of doing so, that's pretty epic. And then I've got all the hours of the day to focus on setting up new income streams and promoting the book. So yeah, all those years of playing poker, I don't think they're going to be fully wasted, but it's never something I would recommend to anyone because of those two reasons that I gave. I mean, it's just everything that we are for, it's the wrong direction. It's kind of like startups, it's a startup space. It's very similar. I mean, you're going, well, it's similar in some respects, but so it's definitely not for me, but yeah, it's a nice thing to do if you can, sure. But
it's kind of like I would compare it to like having clients. Like if you can do SEO, you can have clients and you can make money, but that's not leading to more freedom in your life because then you're working for clients, so it's not like having a job. But at least if shit hits the fan and you've got nothing, you can go back to that and say, okay, I'm going to do SEO for a while and build myself back up, which is kind of nice.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's right. The contact that you put me in touch with, Elena back in Boulder, we've been talking about that. We've identified a few potential clients that we could sell SEO for. And so it's nice to be able to have that ability to make some money. But yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to spend, I mean, you have a certain number of, limited number of hours per day, and you don't want to waste any time. Like, the older I get, the more fully aware I am that I need to make the most of my days and my years. Like, so, like the last thing I want to do is spend my waking hours playing poker now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vegas is fun. It's a sociable thing to do for like an hour or so a night. And so at least, those years of learning the game are not wasted. But cool. Yeah, you've got, and this is, I actually made quite a good chapter in the book. So, I mean, my advice to anyone like setting out, trying to make money independently is not to start with your passions. I think that's kind of one of the worst things that you can do. I mean, obviously, the Gary Vaynerchuk way of approach and of, going all in on what you're most interested in and working hard at it. I've got, complete alignment with that. But I think in terms of like starting out and going from like, that's a long-term approach. That's you build up your blog and you do it over the years. That's kind of like something that you would do in the evenings and weekends. That's not the approach that I don't think you should take if you quit your job and you're trying to make money from day one. So yeah, I think, the Mark Cuban line of looking at this in terms of like following your efforts and what you're best at makes total sense to me. Yeah. And then transition into what you're passionate about. But also, I mean, if you follow your passion and you try and monetize your passion, that can also kill the thing that you're most into. Mm-hmm. So I'm aware of that too. So yeah, you get a lot more perspective and a lot wiser after you make all the mistakes and the older that you get. So I mean, another reason like I wrote this book is that I wish I could have given it to myself a few years ago. I would have saved myself a lot of headaches.
Totally. So cool, man. You're in Vegas now. You're staying there for about a month, you said?
I think it's looking that way, yeah. I can get a monthly rental here at the Vidara. That works out pretty cheaply in terms of day rate for a nice room here. I'm kind of sick of travel now. Like I've taken 4 flights in the last 2 weeks and I've lived in like 4 or 5 different places. I just want to base myself. I want to get some routine. I've been able to do what I've been blogging. I've been connecting with people. There's the blog again. But I haven't really done any, created much value that I can make money from. So I need to kind of buckle down and base myself. And yeah, like the idea of like going to LA in a couple of weeks or something, like it's just tiring. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm going to base myself here for a month and connect with the startup scene in downtown and meet some interesting people and just try and actually save money if I can, which would be nice. Yeah. And you're in San Diego for a while yourself?
Yeah, I'll be here till October 15th, and I'm heading to the DC Bangkok meetup. So
awesome.
Should be cool.
That's cool. I've got to make it next year for sure.
Oh yeah. I think that's going to be a yearly thing now for me. Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up here, but good luck with your book. And again, I'll give the website out. Your website is Richard Patey, PATEY.com. And I'll have all the links in the show notes. We talked about a few different things, so I'll have that. And
nice.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. That was a cool, awesome chat.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been fun.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Freedom Lovin' Podcast. To break free today, head on over to freedomlovin.com and download our free guide. 7 practical tips to living free in an unfree world.